Hi everyone. Thanks to Rory for that introduction. So I'm just going to, I heard the word eclectic in there. So as you can see, sorry it's disappeared, don't know why. Just get that image back up again. It should come up again. Anyway, when it comes back up, there's a horse. There it is, it says improvised music. We worked closely with Eclectic actually, so I thought I'd start this lecture as introducing myself as someone who co-curates a club in London, because it's a very interesting angle to come in as a musician, experimental musician, and an artist as well. And I've learned a lot from doing this, and I've met a lot of musicians, and it's really helped me. So I'm going to explain how I got into this experimental music scene and the horse improvised music and what triggered that. And I'm going to go back in time a little bit to some of the projects or bands I've been involved in that have led me to this place. But the Horse Improvised Music Club partly came out of my connection with Adam Bowman, who was running a club with his brother, the Bowman brothers, in Bonington Square. I don't expect many of you know that place now, because that was like over 20 years ago now. But just to say, feel free to ask any questions throughout this, and it might be a bit clunky because I've done this at relatively short notice, so you might have to bear with me whilst I find some of the things. Anyway, Adam used to run a club with Jonathan, and anyway, they couldn't find any. Adam was looking for somewhere for his club, and we've been friends. So I managed to find a pub which is just up the road. This was about 2012, called The Horse, and they had an amazing upstairs room with sort of psychedelic ball going around, and we set up there. And I'm going to show you some films later from that era, 2012, when we started programming. We've been going since. We've relocated, but we ended up working closely with Edward Solaz from Eclectic, which was a great experience, but obviously they've disbanded now. So on my own personal journey, just to say, I've lived in this area for over 40 years now in South London, and most of the work that I've done is a lot of it is started with people who lived around here or who were based around here, and I've seen a lot of changes, and it's been a tough area for a lot of people, but some amazing projects have come out of this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the 1980s, which is when I was quite young, and I was lucky enough to bump into some other like-minded musicians, and they were forming a political big band called The Happy End. And so I'm going to play you a bit rather than me talking, but you'll have to bear with me whilst I just get the images up.
It stands so
This is a demonstration outside the Neaston Colliery in about 1985. We went and played outside there. This is quite a regular occurrence for us as a band. We arrived in a van, get our instruments out. You might recognise me.
Hands trembled, faces hard, so tired and weary, their ships gone. Oh, never having seen the sun, will it become a sacred ground, with foreign tourists gazing around, asking if men ever really worked here, away beneath this pit-head empty trunks once filled with coal, lined up like men all on the go. Oh, will they ever be used again, or let us track just like the men? Oh, there will always be a happy hour for those with money, jobs, and power. They'll never realize the fact they've caused to men they treat like
So that film was made on Super 8. Obviously, we didn't have mobile phones in those days. I just let it run a bit because we used to have quite a bit of fun as well, as it being freezing cold. That tune was actually written by a musician who lived locally in Brixton, Matt Fox, and he wrote it in conjunction with one of the miners' wives, who wrote that poem. Kay Sutcliffe wrote that poem. And he put it to music. So it was a big band. We tried to play conventionally. Most of us could hardly play our instruments. It sounds pretty good on there, but in the live gigs, it was pretty rough. I remember doing a whole tune where I was a semitone out of tune the whole way through the piece, and I got told off afterwards. So just to explain, I am a self-taught instrumentalist. I've had a few hopeless lessons. I went to one guy and to learn how to play bebop, and he had all his old socks lying around the bedroom and a half-eaten pie, and then he proceeded to play bebop for about 20 minutes, and that just put me off completely, and I just thought, I'm just going to find my own way, forget bebop. So I particularly concentrated on playing long notes, actually, which is what I quite enjoyed doing. So I've had to stick within my own limitations as a saxophonist, and this band fitted that quite well because we could play as collectively, and you'd get an 8-bar solo, and you'd really go for it in that 8-bar. I played at Ronnie Scott's. We played at the Royal Festival Hall. I was so nervous that I did an 8-bar solo just on one big squeak. So anyway, that I will just continue in this vein, just one more track with The Happy End, because it was a huge influence in my life. And just to say that some of those musicians, sadly, quite a few of them have died, but the legacy of Matt Fox was that he went on to form Connecticut, and I don't know if any of you know of Connecticut in this area, but it's a music education thing for young children, teenage children in schools in this area. And they ended up playing a lot of Sun Ra music, etc. And Matt took what he did here in this band out to education, and there's still loads of young people coming out of that organisation of Kinetica now. So there was a legacy from this band. Anyway, I'll just play you one more track. So this next track is a collaboration with Robert Wyatt that we did. And like I say, I was only a small part within this band. I was the tenor 2 or tenor 1, depending on how me and my friend thought. But we all, as we were all playing collectively, there was a particular sound. And this arrangement was done with Robert Wyatt. It came a bit later, more towards the end of the 1980s from what I remember. I'll play you a bit. These pictures are the illustrations that I did for some of the album covers. We ran a silkscreen workshop down the old Kent Road in the fire station. It used to be an ambulance station. We set up a silkscreen printing workshop there where I did silkscreen printing with some mates. We put a gig on there as well. Anyway, these are some of the illustrations. I'll let you listen to the music now.
They can practice all their
Anyway, that's that big band. So that band gradually disbanded, but it went on to do, as I said, people went on to do some quite interesting things. So the next stage, I'm jumping around a lot but I have actually worked as a function musician as well. I'll speak about that shortly, but what I'm trying to say is that all of our own personal experiences feeds into our own art, and if we're musicians or experimental artists, all of our experience seems to affect what we're going to project out to other people. And I'm just trying to explain what I've been through to get to where I am. And it's been a very weird path, I have to say. It's, having not studied music, as I studied fine art. So I've always sought out music that's been a bit odd or on the edges. And I've felt like I've never really fitted into a sort of main jazz stream in any way. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to speak about is Eddie Prevost's workshops, and I don't know if any of you have attended Eddie Prevost's workshop. Has anyone been to one of his workshops at all? Or does anyone here know of Eddie Prevost? Yeah. He's been running workshops in South London, again, just up the road, on Southwark Street in the Welsh Chapel, since 2000, I think. He started there in 2000. I'll just stop that a minute. So I attended those from 2001. I know Seymour, who came here and spoke a while ago, Seymour Wright. There's been some great musicians were involved in that workshop at about a similar sort of time. Hold on, I'm just going to stop this. Anyway, so I attended this workshop for about 10 years, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a short trailer of a film that was filmed from Cafe Otto 4 years ago for Eddie's 80th birthday. Eddie Prevost has been a very, very core member of the improvised music scene for many years with his sort of well-known ensemble or trio AMM. Anyway, he started running these workshops, which were held, you mainly sit in a circle, and throughout the evening you would then do a duo or a trio, and that would often last for about an hour. So most of that experience was listening. And for me, that was a whole new era of listening to sound in a different way, standing to one side of listening to Coltrane or jazz changes and just listening to sound no matter how the sound was made. And the more I got involved in it, the more interesting I found it. That sound in itself was an incredible experience, and the way people were manipulating the sound, either through their hands or through their electronics or through their voice or through their breath, and it wasn't always a comfortable experience sitting in that workshop. It was quite edgy to start off with, I have to say, some of the people coming along, and they weren't initially a lot of people coming from very untrained backgrounds, which was great. People who could hardly play their instruments. People coming from rock backgrounds, bringing bass guitars along, or artists just finding objects on the street, coming along and presenting them and playing them. So it was quite an interesting experience, and it was very intense because the sessions would last two and a half hours. Sometimes there would be some discussion, sometimes not, but it was always very interesting, and I found that really had a big influence on my own personal journey. Just to say, I play the tenor saxophone mainly, and I double up on clarinet and flute. So that the saxophone has been with me for about 50 years now. Not the same one, because I've had one stolen, and it turned up in Romania, but by then I'd already bought another one. But the saxophone as an instrument has been with me through this whole journey in my life. So anyway, I'll just see if I can find this short extract of Eddie Prevost's workshop at Cafe Otto. This film was made by Stuart Morgan Hadgewitz, and he attends our monthly workshop, which we hold just up the road in Blackfriars. He does all our sound recording for us, and he filmed and recorded this gig. So just have a look.
I would say definitely don't try to make too much intellectual sense of it, but just try to enjoy whatever is happening, whatever your ear is catching.
Don't think of it as music, or don't think of it as music you think you know. Think of it as a painting, or think of it as a walk in the forest.
Lou Reed has been called one of the most influential figures in rock and roll, first with his group, the Velvet Underground.
Yeah, so if any of you think you might want to go to that workshop, you can speak to me, or probably Rory might know the details. anyway, it's well worth going. It has changed a lot in the last 20 years, and I'd say that people are a bit more aware of, I don't know, self-aware of where that workshop could go. I think there was a certain, what's the word? Exciting, but yeah, like I say, edgy experimentalism going on when I first went along, and there weren't so many women going along. I stuck it out, and so this is leading to where one of the next sessions that I'd say is influential to me, in that I met another woman at the workshop, Hutch de Mouplier, who's actually been in this college this week working with film students. She writes music for films, and so she's been working with the students in the college this week. Anyway, we decided that we would work with Adam and set up the horse, try and find somewhere. So she's been helping me, but also we had a bit of an overview of the clubs in London that we knew of that were promoting experimental music. It has changed quite a lot in the last 15 years, I think, with the emergence of Cafe Otto. That's changed things a lot, and then seeing a whole new younger generation of people come in who are setting up clubs themselves. I don't know if anyone here runs any events themselves. I don't know, does anyone here run put on any events themselves? Well, anyway, we decided that we would try and program some events, but we wanted to try and add a bit more diversity. The clubs were putting on some really interesting people, but I have to say, representation of women was not so great. So we do our best to try and make a diverse sort of curation of our monthly events. So anyway, we set up this club, and I keep coming back to the horse, and then so one of the other projects that came out of this sort of period is, as Rory mentioned, I met a trumpet player through the horse, and he was involved in working with these Sudanese musicians. So I went along to a session. We did a recording session, and within about 2 months we'd been asked to play at the Tusk Festival, and we'd never done a gig together before. Anyway, I'm going to play you a little extract of one of our live gigs. This is the Scorpios at Tropicana 2019. So that was the Scorpios, and just minimise that. I'll speak a little bit more about any collaborations we've done with some of the Sudanese musicians. Anyway, so I've had that running. I'm still playing in that band. Anyway, so the next point I was going to jump to is a period that we all know about, which is lockdown in 2020, and what a lot of us did, and I'm sure a lot of you managed to, you had your own personal experiences over that time, and some of the things you might have got up to might have actually led to some pieces of artwork or not. You might have been overwhelmed by the experience. One of the things that I ended up doing was collaborating with Anna Homler, who's an artist based in Los Angeles, and she was struggling quite a lot with being at home, isolation. You know, I think a lot of us were. So I would end up chatting to her quite a lot on the phone. Luckily, I managed to get one of those emergency handouts from the Arts Council. I was lucky to get that, and I did put it towards doing a collaboration with Anna Homler. I'm going to project some images of her. She's a very interesting woman. She's worked over in London quite a lot with Steve Beresford, various other London-based musicians. She's played at Cafe Alto. She's a bit older than I am. Anyway, we did this collaboration. I wrote the music and I did actually score it out. And then I sent it to her and she put some words on top. So let me see if I can find it.
portals and allocations, opening and closing, heroes and villains, vague and emotional, confused and shimmering. I've been marinating in solitude. My face mask is a wooden door. I'm traveling without moving. I'm dreaming without sleeping. I'm dying without leaving. On a cruel afternoon, my front lawn becomes a lumpy green sea. How can I cross it? Digital oracles can't be trusted. I'm turning into an alien creature. Purple markings appear on my arms and hands. Can't be trusted. And then mysteriously disappear. I'm a manatee in a world of speedboats. I'm a manatee in a world of speedboats. I'm in an old hotel with long, dark hallways. Some of the rooms have doors that are old master paintings. In one room, a dark-haired woman is asleep in a bed with a turquoise headboard. She's dreaming the secret life of clouds and of watery landscapes that recede as she approaches. Mirikri kala toma chita la ka chita toma kachi kala ayike me chita la toma ya chita la ka balako kra tila tamaya ayike me chita la toma ya rokon balako kra tila tamaya chita rokon.
So I just think over this bit, Anna plays loads of toys as part of her act and uses her voice as well. It's quite a long piece. I didn't realise I've bought the long version. Anyway, just to say that yes, she's got a massive collection of Barbies and other toys. She has also got in her possession a Cadillac of her own that she inherited from her aunt, of which she's done a piece with Adrian Northover. I'm not going to play you that today, but you should check her out. That's Anna Homler. Anyway, I'm going to move onwards. I will keep coming back to the horse, and if any of you are interested in coming along or maybe even taking part at some point, please speak to me at the end. Anyway, through my work at the horse, I came across a really interesting woman, a drummer called Christabel Ephemera Riley. This was about 9 or 10 years ago. And she's pretty confident. She just came over and asked me if I'd like to join in and play with her, and I was like, wow, yes. So we started rehearsing over in her house, right over in the East End, amongst her child's toys. She would also incorporate those onto the drum kit as well, wheeling the tractor around the skin of the drum, getting some chains, and it was a great session, and I really enjoyed going over there. And we've since developed a really nice rapport, and I really enjoy working with her. So I'm going to play one of the tracks that we recorded a while ago. Right, so that was Christabel FM O'Reilly on drums at a session that we did. It was about 7 years ago or so. So yeah, I've quite enjoyed working with her and working with Sudanese musicians. The Sudanese, they've got some great drummers there, and it's drawn me into the sound of and the feel of working with drummers, and what textures they can get, as Christabel had said, as working with skin. I like that idea because within the saxophone we've got the pads that are almost like similarity to the drum skin. You've got a sort of leather pad in there. I like that idea of some sort of percussion, even though it's a breath that's creating that sound. I like the collaboration between drums and saxophone players. It's an interesting combination. So I'll go and talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I just want to mention Adam Bowman, who's been a real influence in my musical sort of journey and a pleasure to work with. He's got his 3-day residency at Cafe Otto this week. But I don't know, have any of you seen Adam Bowman perform? No. Okay, he hopefully, I don't even know if I've got any photos of him. He was in a photo with Anna Homler. Anyway, tonight he'll be performing at Cafe Otto. The table that he has got is absolutely enormous tonight, as Rory well knows because he's doing the sound for it. And I think Adam's had to do 3 trips up to take all his glasses. He's got a lopsided glass. His whole table is full of objects. At one point he brings out this massive comb, and it's mic'd up. They're all mic'd. I'm not quite sure of the technical sort of term of it, but he's using these objects. But the hearing that he has got is superb, because you might not recognise it to start off with, but on the recording that I've just done with Christabel and Adam, you can hear that he's been listening closely to what we've been playing, and then on these objects he's actually playing tunes. He's got all range of kitchen objects, all spread out on the table, and he'll be deliberating as to which one to use next. And I'm very sorry I haven't got a photo of him. I did actually go to Beirut with him about 6 years ago, myself and my partner and Adam. He got through customs fine with his bag of jagged bits of broken glass. He uses they're quite often sticking out in front of the table. You don't want to go up over to him in a hurry because you'll get stabbed. But he got through customs fine. We had a real problem with our saxophones. Anyway, we had a very interesting trip to Beirut together. We've also been to Berlin together. Anyway, hopefully I'm going to find the right track. It might take me a couple of goes. But this is Adam doing text piece. He's an all-round artist. He does the most amazing collages, which I will also show. He does the collages for the Horse Improvised Music Club every month, and they're probably quite time-consuming. So let me see if I can find the track, and then I'll try and put the visuals up as well.
Deputies, Oklahoma, neither artist longer descriptions, accounts describe factory cambling, long neck odor, flea arc, jar, aerodrome notices, new avenue, courageous appearance, flags, delicious, lake asbestos, never orange dinghies, better laser in Italian silver, everything children, electric havers, dollar Rick Anthony's Roger smile, Anna belong. Close, drive eyes, it's light 19. Rolling Superman, smell rather after Ronnie dumplings. Night Eurasian charisma, engineer soon illegal aboard like bodacious.
So this is a picture of Adam and myself, and if you and Rory. We did a trio a few weeks ago, which was a really nice trio to do. This recording was done at Eclectic, actually in 2016 or 17. It's part of a larger ensemble with percussionists as well. So these are the collages that he's done. He does. He's just had a book come out at Cafe Otto with a lot of his artwork in. Anyway, so I'm going to start to wind things down here a bit. I'm going to, as I said, I'd show you a few films from our Horse Improvised Music Club, so I'm going to move straight on to that now. So this is the table that I was just talking about. This was 2013, so he's developed a bit since then. So these films were mostly made at our first venue in the Horse Improvised Music Club, which is the pub just along the road up near Lambeth North. Right, so that was excerpts from the Horse Improvised Music Club, mainly from about 2013. So yeah, I'm going to wind the lecture down. I just want to mention one other person who, yet again, lives in this area, just down the road. Is Caroline Crabble, who is a very interesting saxophone player. And I'll just show you. I'm not sure if there's time, but this is an LP that I did with her, with about 19 other women. This was started in 1997, and she ran it for about 6 or 7 years ago. It's called The Mass Producers, and it was all women. She had costumes for us. I'll just show you some photos. I'll just put a minute of this track on. Each LP is hand sewn with felt, and the inside is handwritten, and it's very interesting. This LP was recorded at Gateway Studios in 2001. I won't go into details, but anyway, there were 20 women. We spent a lot of time rehearsing. Caroline wrote ideas, pieces, and it was a very visual piece as well. We all stood in a circle with platform shoes on. They're platform wedge shoes, so they weren't like high, little tittery high heels, but they were quite substantial, but they were hard work to walk in. So I'll just play you a couple of minutes of this. So the piece involved altered techniques on the saxophone. I don't know if anyone here plays the sax, but we were encouraged to use alternate fingerings, sing into the bells of the saxophones, but it was all carefully choreographed with us moving as well in a big circle. And it was quite hard to memorise a lot of it, but it was an extremely powerful piece. We did a few pieces like this. So I think I'm going to wind this lecture down now, because I've spoken quite a lot about all the projects that I've done, and please feel free to ask me any questions. I mean, I have got more material, but I think that's probably enough, actually. So feel free to ask any questions.
Cool. Thanks very much, Sue. I'm just going to turn the lights up a little bit so you can see people that are asking.
Oh, I just say a sort of personal thing. I don't know if any of you noticed, but Caroline was about 8 months pregnant during this performance, which her son is now about 23. So.
Cool. Has anyone got any? Yes, Daniel.
First off, what was that piece called? Because that was amazing.
The last piece.
Yeah.
Hold on. I don't actually know what it was called.
Oh,
to
what's
be
the
honest.
LP called? Or?
It's called it was by the Mass Producers, Caroline Crabble, Mass Producers. And the thing is, the information, you have to keep doing this. And because I've done this at fairly short notice, I, to be honest, I shouldn't have had the time or the patience to go through every single.
Fair enough,
you are welcome to come up and look at this at the end, because it's quite interesting what she's done.
Thank you. Well, my actual question was, well, it's a couple. Why did you want to move into running the Horse Improvised Music Club? What attracted you about doing that? And you mentioned how it had affected your thinking, and that you met a lot of musicians through it. But how has it actually affected how you play, or who you actually play with, or your thinking?
Did you say the Horse Improvised Music Club?
Well, whichever the one. I may have mistook that. I thought you were involved in running at least one.
Yeah. I co-curate it with Adam Bowman and Adrian Northover, and initially Hutch did it with us as well. Well, I'd have to say that I've always been interested in experimental music, even when I was very young, because I remember going to workshops when I was an art student at Coventry, and Steve Beresford, David Toop, all that lot. They'd come and run workshops, and myself and my friend would often be one of the few people there. I loved it, and they'd come and perform in the pubs. And I started looking at Lowell Coxhill workshops, so I'd go to workshops that were run by him. That was the start of it. And then I think going to Eddie Prevost's workshop was coming back into it, and then meeting Hutch, and then forming the it was partly so that I could get some gigs, because to be honest, I wasn't actually getting asked to do that much, and I found it a bit frustrating. I have to be honest, I was known as my partner's wife. I was not known as a musician. And so I met another woman, and I think that's partly why I've ended up working a lot with women. I've got loads of duos with some really great women players, and women, and all duos from all ensembles with all people. But I realised how many great women players there are out there, and because I welcome them into the club, that's where a lot of my collaborations have been. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it certainly does. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with a question? I've got a couple questions, so I can maybe I'll ask a couple, and then if anyone else comes up with one. But I've written down, so I need to find them. Which one should I ask? I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask you about finding locations for gigs, actually, and what your criterias are, because Otto's great and stuff, and it's really nice to have venues that cater for specific kind of music, but I always enjoyed that the horse nights, and Adam's really good at it as well, would find venues that weren't just purpose made sort of music venues to do nights in, and I wondered if that was kind of an intentional thing and what criterias there were when you were looking for venues, or if it was just what was available and
well, it was whoever would accept us, because when they see me and Adam arrive, they've got to be pretty easygoing, and we did struggle with that on the horse, which is one of the reasons we got kicked out in the end, was because the first manager I got on really well with. You have to develop a rapport with the landlords, and if you don't, you're not going to stand a chance. So eventually a new manager took over, and I don't think he could stand the sight of all these people coming in when they're sort of not looking all dressed up and everything, and getting tables out and leads everywhere. So it has to be a fairly sort of functional venue, I think. We're lucky with the church up the road, because the vicar is a very nice and accommodating host for our gigs. So I did say to them, look, we're not going to be playing Mozart, and they said, no worries, you do what you want. So it is tricky though, because a lot of pubs now have started asking for minimum bar takings. It's very hard trying to find venues to put this sort of music on, but they do seem to pop up though.
No, and I think it's really nice. I do really enjoy being able to go to shows that are in different locations, and I think it's quite important for the music for it not to always happen in one place. So
I would say that the clubs that do run in London serve a really good purpose, because they give a lot of people gigs who it's very hard to get a gig at Cafe Otto or any jazz venues or the more high profile. They just cannot put everybody on, and even at the Horse we struggled to put everybody on, but the clubs that are sort of dispersed around London serve a real purpose in that they give people a chance to develop or play their own stuff, and that's why it's good to put your own club on. If you find that you're not getting the gigs, just set your own thing up.
Yeah, I know that feeling very well. Okay, I'm going to pick another one, and then I'll only do two. I guess I was interested in what it felt like sort of doing the Happy End and being a part of performing political music at that particular moment. Because I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that it's from my perspective, I've seen stuff like that retrospectively. So I really like Leon Rosselson and stuff, and it seems like there was a lot of political music going on that was quite but people were quite active in being at protests and performing at protests, and I just wanted to know how it sort of felt at that time to be performing that music, and then whether you could speak a bit about what the motivations were behind picking the songs that you performed, or were they sort of all was it one person that sort of picked the songs, or like how did that all come about?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, in a way, I can see looking back for people now, it must look quite dated in a way. But at that time, you know, there was the miners. There was a lot of issues. There always are issues that people should be out on the streets about. But I think people were more out on the streets then, and I might be wrong. I don't know. But there were quite a few political big bands around, and I think the Happy End was sort of modelled on there was the Charlie Hayden Liberation Orchestra. There was quite a few big bands. There was the Mike Westbrook big band. There was a huge. There was a lot of big bands coming out, and particularly in London, there was Loose Tubes and the Jazz Warriors and the Happy End. And music was being used very much for politics then, and you know, perhaps naively so in some respects. We would be singing songs about countries that we probably didn't even know that much about, but the idealism was firmly in our heads of socialism and communism, you know, and that's where we were going with it, and the words strongly dictated that. And so that's why we were out on the picket lines. I didn't choose the music. Like I said, I was just a small cog in the works. I wasn't at that sort of level. I remember playing a piece. I read the music upside down for 6 months because I didn't realise it was the wrong way up. But there was a couple of writers in the band who were excellent at doing arrangements, and they chose music from Bertolt Brecht, Kurt Weill collaborations, Hans Eisler. So that was the starting point, and then they started to write their own things. We would bring singing music from Cuba, Chile. They were all resistance songs, you know, which is very much coming out of that 60s, 70s and 80s era.
Yeah, it's because it's. I've always liked how that sort of crops up in improvised music as well. That kind of politic. I mean, like with Eddie and AMM and all of those guys, like it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of connection between the two, and it's
yeah. Well, also, I mean, for me, the attraction of that band as well was the wildness of it, because we were also coming out of the punk era, and I think that was this sort of ethos then of people who had not been trained but just wanted to go wild on stage, you know, and have something to say with just 2 or 3 chords. I mean, obviously this became quite a sophisticated big band, but for a lot of us in it, we could express ourselves in a short solo with limited techniques, but it would drive us forward with our energy, you know, and through that, I think I, you know, became really interested in experimental music, because I could see an edginess on that front, and then moving into experimental music where there's no harmonic rules and no bebop rules or anything like that.
Cool. Has anyone else got any questions? We got any? If there's any in the chat, okay, please let me know.
The experimental music and free improv is quite low. There's not much money in it. Is that right? That it's difficult to make money doing kind of strange music that has small audiences. So you mentioned that you did function bands.
Yeah.
And I was interested in how you sort of make a living. Is it strictly as a musician, or do you have other stuff that you do?
Well, I taught. I was teaching in a school for a couple of afternoons a week, so obviously I had that. But it's not an easy way. It's not an easy way, whichever music you're doing at all. But I have done a lot of function music, and in the most bizarre sort of circumstances. I mean, I've done stuff at the Roundhouse where I've been hanging from the ceiling, and we played at a nudist colony. Luckily, I was allowed to keep my clothes on. But I've had a wealth of experience playing function music, and I love it. I love playing those tunes, those old tunes from the 30s and 40s. And I've got a sort of quartet. Well, I mean, we don't get booked so much, I think, because we are starting to look a bit old. There's a lot of younger players who can do it a lot better than us now. So, but I think it's a really good experience if you can do that and play experimental music. I found playing experimental music, when I came back to play the function music, it freed me up because I wasn't so afraid of making mistakes. And there's vice versa. When I go into playing experimental music, I know that I have got a library of tunes that I'm not going to put in necessarily, but I've got that in there, you know. And like I say, each of us individually have a sort of library that we will gradually be picking up as we go through our lives. And actually it does get more interesting as you get older as well, because you realise you've got more. Maybe it gets a bit more unhelpful as well, but I don't know, you know.
If no one else has got a question, I've got one more question, if that's all right, which is... Oh, there's one over there. Go on. Yes. No, you go first. I think mine's a closer.
You touched on this earlier with the workshops at Otto, but I wondered if you could speak more to how the sort of free improv and experimental music scene has changed over the course of your career. And I guess a follow-up thing, do you think as the language and perhaps tropes of free improv have become more established, that has changed your relationship with the scene and the music?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's certain aspects of that I could answer, but just through I feel like I've seen two stepping stones from this. I mean, I used to go and watch a lot of improvised music with Evan Parker, and one of the main things that's changed is far more women are doing it now. Well, a lot of the time I would go, and if you go back in time and look at programs or, you know, The Wire or so on, you won't see so many women. So that has definitely changed things, and that has changed a whole aesthetic as well. But I think aesthetics changed dramatically as well because of technology. Because, you know, before 2000 and so, I think there was, well, I don't know, people have always been using electronics, and that's a very interesting area to go into. But from my own personal experience, I ended up seeing a lot more just acoustic instruments being played. And that would be at clubs in London, like the Clinker that was run by Hugh Metcalfe. So it's definitely changed, and there's far more people involved in it now. It was I'd say it was a much smaller scene, and I wouldn't say cliquey, because I wouldn't want to denigrate it in a way. I think it was a great, some great stuff going on, and there's been some, like people like Maggie Nichols and Evan Parker and so on, Lowell Coxhill, loads and loads of great musicians that have pulled this through and have been so encouraging, like Eddie Prevost, to new musicians and welcoming younger musicians or older who are new to it, welcoming people into the scene. And I think that's quite an interesting way forward. But also there's been new clubs set up by younger people now who are bringing in a whole load of other new people as well. So, I think that's great.
It's not from the chat, it's just from me. Thank you. I have a question that follows on from talking about I guess women existing in these spaces, and you've said that there's more women now. I'm wondering, so maybe I've got a few questions. I'm wondering if you feel it's easier now to be a woman in these spaces. And then my second question is about, there's the kind of social, community, cultural space of taking up space and turning up and being there.
And then there's also the space within the language of sound and playing with other people. So my question is quite gendered on those two topics.
Yeah, I'm not. I can answer the first part. Can you repeat the first part again of the question? Sorry.
I'm wondering if. So you've said that there are more women in these spaces now playing.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if, in your experience, it's easier to access these spaces and to be in these spaces.
Yeah, I think it is, because I think what's happened, and it needed to happen, really, is more women programming. I mean, that makes a big difference, because, you know, through no fault of their own, but men tended to program men, you know, and not think outside of that. But some people, obviously loads of people didn't, but that was the sort of norm. And I think with more women being curating, more women being involved in the music tends to bring more women into the audience, more women come forward, but it hasn't changed dramatically, I have to say, because of my inbox in my email asking for gigs at the Horse. I don't think I ever get a request from maybe 2 women a year, which is really odd. So I have to go out of my way to make sure that I ask women, whereas I've got a list this long of ensembles of men, and I would like to program everybody, you know. I don't want to, but we can't, and we try to create a sort of you know, diverse programming, really.
Can I ask the second part of my question again, just in case you feel you can answer it? So that what you just talked about there, we're talking about the kind of social space.
Yeah.
But what I'm interested in with this question is about the space within the sound itself and the playing itself, and if you feel this has a gendered aspect. So when you're playing with women, when you're playing with men, are these dynamics present for you within the playing and within the sound?
Yes, I would say they probably are. I mean, I work with Caroline still, who I mentioned, Caroline Crabble. She set up a new ensemble called Orchestra New, and that's women and transgender people, and we talk about these issues quite a lot. I don't think all women. There's women who were coming through 25 years ago, who were confident, got in there, and did it. And I'd like to have been one of those, but I wasn't. And I think there is a particular language that is inside, but I think that we can work together. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a really good way forward, that we have more women involved, but that we're all listening to each other, whatever gender or whatever persuasion we are, whatever. But if women are given that space, then they feel encouraged. But I read an article by Sylvia Hallett. I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's been around for a long time and a very encouraging musician on the experimental scene. I read an article about her that from 20 years ago, and she was asked if she felt any discrimination. She said no, but one of the things she said I thought was quite interesting was that girls generally, I don't know, this has probably changed now, but this was the case for me when I was a girl. I loved jazz and music, and I really, really desperately wanted to get into it. I couldn't find any avenues for it. But the boys from the school would all go back to their bedrooms and play their guitars, and they'd be working out, you know, forming bands and so on. But girls tended in those days to go and join the orchestra and learn a flute or something. There was stereotyping going on. I hope that's changing, but there's conversations I've had, and it sounds like it's still not changing that much, you know. But I think that's where a lot of men or boys tend to discover their creative language, you know, when they're teenagers, get into bedroom and sort of like work things out. And I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it really does. Thank you. It's a really good and interesting answer. And just one more before, if anyone else has a question or Rory has his closing one. Following on from what you just said, what would you like to see happen, let's say in the next 10 years?
Well, I can see it happening already a bit, but I would like to see funding where it goes to women curators who, I think that is happening actually, and I think festivals now, I don't really have my finger on the pulse with festivals, but I think, you know, now the things are changing a lot. I don't know, I just think we should carry on the way forward and including everyone as much as possible, particularly women, and make sure women, people from different cultures or whatever are. And that's another thing, is this scene in London, I have to say it does tend to be across one particular culture. I notice more people coming from other countries now are tending to be involved, but it does tend to have been a white British thing. So,
thank you. Does anyone else have a question before the closing question?
It's a very simple question, I think. Have you ever been interested in learning other instruments, or has the saxophone always been enough for you?
Well, I had to. I play the clarinet and flute as well, but I had to teach myself. I went through the grades on the piano about 10 years ago because I needed it for teaching. I didn't enjoy going to ABRSM at my age, and the woman was seen quite rude to me, actually. It was a horrible experience. And I never want to do that again. I haven't done any other exams.
I did grade 5 violin, so I know what you mean. Thank you.
Any more? Okay. Well, the last thing I don't know if it's a question. It probably involves you repeating yourself. But I just wondered if you could just say for everybody, like, one last time, like what the philosophy of the Horse Improv Club is, if there is one, and like how people can find out about the gigs and where they happen, and when the next one is, and just like if anyone wants to come.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, the next one is Friday the 15th of May, and you'll see it if you go to the Horse Improvised Music Club website, or we're on Facebook and Instagram. You'll see information coming up. The ethos is to encompass a sort of broader range of experimental and improvised music and free jazz. For myself, if I'm programming, I quite like to make sure we have like electronics and then acoustic set and then I don't know, soloist or a spoken word. Try and keep it diverse in all ways, really, and welcoming. Hopefully, I suspect there's a few. We've lost a few on the wayside, but I'm sorry to them.